Welcome, Ethan, to another episode of the New Resilience Podcast.
Glad to be here, my friend.
Yeah, excited to have you. We've been talking about this for a while, so I'm really excited that we're able to do it. We're in beautiful, what is it, Hyannis?
Hyannis, Cape Cod.
Yeah. You've been here as well.
Yes. This is like Jaws Mecca over here. Used to come here as a little kid. It's a beautiful place, fun spot to get to have a conference.
Yeah, very exciting. Awesome. So excited to just dive right in. What we typically talk about is we love to go through your story, talk about your learnings as someone who's been fairly experienced in the field. You worked at a few places, founded a few places, so we'd love to learn about your journey. Talk about some of the trends and the challenges that you see, kind of like bring a mix of both, like experience from before, but also I'm sure you're seeing a lot of things change. So maybe talk a little bit about that, and then get to know you as a person. So that's about it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited to get to be here, to get to talk to you, to get to share a little bit more about our program, our industry, and what keeps us going, right? It's a unique, behavioral health has changed a lot in the last half decade, let alone the last 30, 40 years. So it's a different world we're living in now. Yeah.
Awesome. So Ethan, let's talk about your journey a little bit. Like, what drew you to behavioral health? How'd you get started? 4-year-old you, did you have plans to be in the space? Yeah.
If my 15-year-old self was looking at me now, he'd say, no freaking way, right?
Okay.
Did not expect it. So I got into this area because I was a real rambunctious youth. And I struggled a lot with oppositional defiance disorder, so ODD. And as a teenager, if any of my friends watch this podcast, they will know exactly what I'm talking about, exactly what years. Because I went in and out, right? I went through middle school and I was a smart kid. I was kind. And I hit high school and puberty and everything changed. And I was angry and aggressive. And I gave up on school. I started getting into fights. I spent more time in the principal's office than I did in the classroom. And I was in and out of behavioral health hospitals, right? There's a couple in Rhode Island, Bradley and Butler, that I went in and out of. I was in outpatient programming.
Yeah.
And I was just visceral. My behavior I was always combative with my parents. I lost a lot of friends. And it wasn't until I was about 17 that my father and I can remember this conversation vividly. He sat me down. He said, son, I'm not scared of you not getting into college, right? Because I'd still applied and got rejected, I think, over 20 of them. But he said, I'm afraid you're not going to be alive past 21. And
Wow.
it just shakes you at that age. Yeah. I couldn't register it at that age.
Especially
right?
if your father says that, I think.
It's hard. It's hard. And it's out of love, right? It's fear. I don't know what's going to happen. And all I want to do is help you. And I had two very supportive parents that I'm very, very fortunate to have. And that was a wake-up call. And I went from abusing drugs and alcohol as a 14, 15, 16-year-old to being 17. And I went cold turkey sober at that age, at that time. And I graduated high school just barely. I went into community college because they were the only ones who would take me in. And then from there, I
Still
worked
a huge change, though. So
all my friends are going off to colleges, and I'm just waving at them, wishing I could go. But I went to CCRI, Community College, Rhode Island, and I got my act together, and it was a big change. And even then, I didn't know I was going to go into behavioral health, right? I was trying to get my act together to get a job and figure out the next step in life.
Yeah.
But I never would have guessed I would be here.
Wow.
Caught me by surprise as much as everybody else.
Yeah. It's a powerful story. And then I guess, like, what keeps you going? It's a tough space to be in.
It's
every day, I'm sure, brings new challenges.
Oh yeah, right. That's any job's going to have its challenges. These ones can be more unique than most, right? When you're talking to families and loved ones who have had the 5th hospitalization with their son or friend or partner, and they don't know what to do, right? They're at their wit's end, trying to figure out what the next step is. That's where I come in. I come in at the hardest moment in people's lives. And it's not for everyone. There's a lot of people who would probably be like, I cannot do this. Burnout's real, right? We see it in clinicians all the time. But I'm not doing the hard clinical work, the truly meaningful work. I'm there to connect dots. And so for me, when you help that family or that person or that friend of someone who's going through something and you see them step into a program for that first time, when you get that call or that text, it's like, you changed my life.
Yeah.
That you make a difference, right? I started out in plastics packaging, and then I went to medical physics, and I went through all that to find my place here in behavioral health, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Wow. That's, yeah, exciting. And again, for the folks listening in, I think that is quite an inspiring story to sort of learn
I appreciate
from.
it.
Yeah. Maybe talk about your journey in behavioral health, like as a career as well. Like, what were you doing? What sort of led up to your position today?
Yeah.
Talk a bit about your program. What are you excited about?
Absolutely. It's definitely been an upward battle for sure. I came in, I joined, it was a newer intensive outpatient program that was national, and it was totally virtual just after COVID. And so I got to help launch, I was early on in their business development side, I got to help launch a new market with a new team, and it was wonderful. And that's where I really got I dipped my toes in the water, and I was going into hospitals and going into treatment programs and schools and therapy practices.
This is right after COVID. So.
Yeah, this is about a year and a half into COVID. And so I came in and I really got to go right into the deep end, right? You're working with social workers who are on their 12th hour of their 12th hour shift in an inpatient psychiatric unit.
Yeah.
Going, you either better have something good to tell me or get the hell out of here.
Yeah, yeah.
And baptism by fire, to say the least. And so I really got to dive in there and experience it from an outpatient level. It was strictly IOP, which is intensive outpatient program. And from there,
I'm actually curious there. Like,
what is it? What's the level of care?
No, not just the level of care. Like, to the question of, just this better be important or this better be useful. Like, I'm sure you're not the only one who's going in there into hospitals. And we've heard how difficult it is to actually get into hospitals. So what sort of...
Well, most of the time they wave you right out the door when you walk in, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of it is when you go in, it's being able to find the right person, right? When I go in, I know I'm asking for the lead social worker on staff in the inpatient psychiatric unit, and that's a locked unit. So I'm not just walking through a back door to get there, right? I'm buzzing into the front. I'm sharing, hey, I have this program. I'm here to help you, right? This is a goal for a discharge resource for someone who's going to need it, right? It's a referral source for when they're stepping down.
Right.
And they need it, right?
Yeah.
Their job as an inpatient psychiatric unit is to help find that next level of care. So to be a good one that can step in and support them, ultimately it's not too hard to get the door unlocked. It all depends on their day. If they've had a real bad one, they might say, Ethan, no
this
need.
Is not
right now. This isn't the time.
Okay. Got it. All right. I think I interrupted you. So like
No. Go on.
Yeah. So like I think you were talking about like your journey, like you going into inpatient hospitals and like COVID, and then.
Yeah, so that's where I started. Then I actually transitioned over into the residential side, which has so I had a lot of so I never ended up going residential. I was inpatient, outpatient. And residential is a really unique setting, and there's been a ton of light shown on what it's done from a negative aspect. In a lot of ways, up in New England, there's a Netflix documentary that came out that can show about the perils of what can happen up there. But in a lot of ways, there's still a lot of programs that change people's lives for the better. And actually shining light on those bad scenarios did great work to be able to say, hey, this isn't going to happen again.
Sure.
Right? We have tighter regulations and rules for how people can get in there, who can work there, things of that nature. And so after having some dear friends who went to residential programs and seeing how it impacted them, both for better and for worse, depending on who they were, I knew it was a place where when you think of behavioral health and the continuum of care, I think of it like a ladder, and there's different rungs. So the top one is going to be crisis stabilization. This is going into an emergency room, an inpatient psychiatric hospital. That is where you get stabilized, where you get medicated, right? Where the first step is to make sure you are physically safe and not in risk of harm to yourself or others. The next would be residential. So it's that second tier. It's still very high level of care without being crisis stabilization. And it's a really unique step because a lot of states and a lot of programs were not designed to have that. They go right from that inpatient to an outpatient, right? So they might go to PHP, partial hospitalization. Or they may go to IOP, intensive outpatient. And that's a big step to take.
Not everyone has the...
You get 7 to 10 days. In some programs, you might be stuck in there. You hear horror stories of people left in an ER room for 60 days because they have nowhere to send them.
Wow.
And so that's such a unique level of care that can be so fundamental in how someone can progress in their healing journey, is stepping into that. And so residential is always something I was highly, highly interested in.
That was an interesting anecdote, though. Like someone stuck in an ER for 60 days. Why do you think that is? Is this because the social worker in the ER does not know where to send it to? There are no
It's a
vacancies?
good question. It's
Yeah.
it's oftentimes it's lack of resources, lack of awareness of resources. So it's not necessarily the social worker, right? They're going to have a whole list of places they can refer out to, and if
Mm-hmm.
not, they're going to get on that computer and try and find ones across the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
A lot of it boils down to insurance, right? If they have
Mm.
Medicaid, they have to stay in state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, guess what? Where I live in Michigan, we don't have many residential, so
Yeah.
it's tough
Yeah.
to try and find the right one. Medicare, the different facilities can or cannot take Medicare depending on them.
Mm.
Commercial insurance, a lot of them might be out of network versus in network. So an in network program, you might go down and only pay $1,000 if you've met most of your deductible. Whereas an out of network program, you might get through the admissions process and get to the point where you're ready to go and find out that you have a bill of $15,000 waiting for you. And that's a big change
Yeah.
or a big pile
A
of
lot
change
of
to
people.
swallow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never put it on the social workers. There's no one who works more tirelessly and is less appreciated
Yeah.
than social workers. So my heart goes out to every one of them
Yeah.
because you do the real work. Us BD folks, us marketing, us business development, our job is to connect the dots, but you're the one who changed the lives.
I mean, I think everyone's yeah important, but yeah, like I get the message.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so we were talking about the residential, like you said, you identified as like a huge gap.
Yeah.
Does it still remain a big gap?
It's
in this
growing.
space?
I mean, even in the last 2.5 years, you'll see a lot more programs being primary mental health residential. It's really important to identify that difference because there were a lot of primary SUD substance use programs that existed. We've had those for a long time. There are some primary mental health ones that have been around for a long, long time. You think your Austin Riggs, your Gould Farm. There's a lot, Menninger. There's a lot of great programs out there, but the problem is getting access to them. And so we've seen a big rise of them over the last, I'll even say half decade. But now it's becoming a norm to hear about a primary mental health residential program.
Okay.
I mean, I look at one of my alma maters, A Mission for Michael AM/FM, which is a
Yeah.
phenomenal program, and what they've done in the last 5 years to expand from California originally, now in Virginia and in Minnesota. I mean,
Yeah.
you're covering almost the entirety of the United States for people, and that's
Yeah.
incredible to have that access to care.
Yeah, yeah. Their growth story is pretty incredible,
Yeah.
and it's a real need. I'm sure
Absolutely.
that people continue to have. So you went to residential, and then that's where you sort of.
I stayed. I said I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Not for the near
Yeah.
future. I love it here. I work for a program now called Rose Hill Center, which is it's a really unique program in and of itself. It's primary mental health residential, but it's called a therapeutic farming community, and there's only 5 of them in the country
Wow.
in existence,
Okay.
and so it's very unique. The founding one was Gould Farm, who actually just went and toured a few days ago and got to see their team.
Fascinating.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Our founder's son. Dan and Rosemary Kelly's son, John, actually went to Gould Farm, and that's where they learned about this type of care. And Gould Farm is about to hit 113, I think it's 112 years right now.
Wow.
So really
That's
amazing
insane.
program. And so when John went there and came home, our wonderful founders started us as a nonprofit to say, hey, we need something like this in Michigan and serving the Midwest.
Yeah.
And that's where we came about 33 years ago.
Wow.
So it's been a journey in and of itself, and the model of care is so unique because it's not, when people oftentimes think of primary mental health residential, they think of going on site and being in clinical programming for anywhere from 8 to maybe even 10 hours a day, right? It's very intensive, and that can be very helpful for a lot of people, and for some, depending on their diagnosis as well, it can be too much. And so ours is different. A therapeutic farming community style, we have therapeutic work teams. And I want to emphasize, when I say a work team, it's not free labor. It is it's all built around the idea of community, connection, and structure, right? So it's creating the environment that in and of itself can be therapeutic, and then coupling that with intensive clinical, which happens in tandem. So the mornings are going to be working on it could be in the barn with one of our 100 animals. It could be in the greenhouse, right? Horticulture, learning how to take a seed to a plant. We do a huge annual flower sale. For anyone who's watching, come up to Holly, Michigan, and the Saturday before Mother's Day. You won't be disappointed. But it's a beautiful experience. They can work in the kitchen if they have a desire to learn the culinary arts, how to prep.
Yeah.
We eat all of our food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, staff and
Wow,
residents.
really?
So it's very intimate and personal, right? We are a step, a journey, a big part of the journey in their lives, depending on how long they're there. So that's going to be the mornings. They work on these therapeutic teams. The afternoons are going to be more clinically intensive. think of your individual therapy, your groups. We have a DBT program,
Mm-hmm.
psychiatry, case management, things like that. That's all tends to happen in the latter half of the day. So it's a little less intensive. It's not 8 hours of
Mm-hmm.
programming per day, or intensive, right? What I would call groups or individual sessions, things like that. But it's a combination of both to create an environment for long-term healing. And growth.
Balance and
Exactly. It's a perfect
Yeah.
word for it, is balance.
yeah. What's the average length that
Length to stay?
Yeah.
It's all dependent. So we have three ways that we can help people bring into Rose Hill. The first is going to be community mental health contract. So that's going to be state Medicaid through Michigan.
Okay.
And this is part of our founders' beliefs, and it will not change of who we are as a program. We help those who oftentimes don't have access to care. So it's going to be state Medicaid through Michigan. It's going to be private pay with financial aid. We are, I say to people, if you know me, you've heard me say, I have the best job in the world. I have a nonprofit. We have to make sure that that all of our team is paid, that all of our bills are paid, and everything on top of that goes back to the residents, right? So it's helping them, whether it be with financial aid, helping create new things on campus, helping provide things for residents. So it's really wonderful to get to be able.
Wow. That's and like you guys are, I think, like I said, the founders, like the ethos and everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it's ingrained in our core. I mean, we have a very long tenure for a lot of people in our staff who have been there for 20 plus years.
Wow.
Which I think is an accolade in and of itself to
And
have
speaks
people.
volumes of the faith and the
Exactly.
values.
Most programs haven't been around more than 10 years, so to say
Yeah.
you've had people working at it for over 20 is
Yeah.
a pretty wonderful thing.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Maybe let's move into sort of like your role a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
so you're leading business
So
development?
I'm the head of business development, and I support with leading the marketing side too. So we haven't had business development at Rose Hill for a little while, and so I got to come on and join the leadership team as someone who's really driving the initiative for. And I said it earlier in this already, but my job is to connect the dots, right? So I'm the one who's at conferences here at Cape Cod Symposium. I'm going into hospitals and treatment centers, and I'm presenting to their leadership teams, their clinical teams. I'm the one who's oftentimes taking the initial phone call for an individual or family or a loved one who might want to come into Rose Hill, right? So in a lot of ways, I get to be the face of it, right?
Yeah,
I get to go out there and help drive brand awareness,
Yeah.
make
No
sure
pressure.
that always pressure. Make sure I get to drive referrals coming in. That's such a vital part of what
Yep.
we do is
Yep.
you have your organic search. There's always going to be people who might
Yeah.
go on Google and say, I have this symptom, I need help. And there's going to be 100 programs that show
Yep.
up. And if you're
Yep.
in Michigan, we'll be one of the top ones. But the reality is the highest quality referrals are the ones that comes from someone who know you. And they know that this is going to be a program that could potentially work with, right, your specific diagnosis. Because anyone, I've said it many times, anyone who says they do everything well means they probably do everything okay.
Yeah.
Because we all specialize, we all have our areas of expertise, and knowing what they are and our limits is vitally important.
Got it. Yeah, that's really good to know. So then, let's maybe talk about your role and what do you see as the biggest challenge in your role today?
That's a great question, and it evolves on a near monthly basis. I'd say one of the hardest parts right now is we've seen particularly after COVID, we've seen an influx of borderline personality being diagnosed, which can be really, really challenging. And we are a program that actually specializes in this. We can work very closely with it. Same with schizoaffective schizophrenia. We'll call it those higher acuity cases.
Sure.
And when you can't take someone into your program, right, whether it be something like aggression or elopement, right, we're an open campus, so
Yeah,
a
yeah,
history
yeah.
of elopement, it can be a
Yeah.
challenge. You have
Yeah.
to find a
It's a
place that's going to
farming-
be
yeah.
exactly. It's got to be
Yes.
safe, and so finding the right program can be immensely challenging because you can go to Google, you can use AI and find 25
Yeah.
programs. But actually knowing what they can and can't do, what insurances they can and can't take, what ages, right? Every website will give you a finite amount of information.
Yeah.
And then when you contact them and you put them through and you think you're going to land one, it
Yeah.
might not be the case. So finding the right referral at the right time can be an immense challenge because you have a window,
Yeah.
right? A lot of these people are in a heightened state.
Yeah.
And so you have a finite window of when you can find this right level of care for them.
Okay.
And so that's always a challenge,
Yeah.
right? My job is not done until I have helped them get
Yeah.
to that next stage. I am not, and our program is not
Yeah.
one that says, all right, we've given you the names of 5 programs, good luck.
Yeah.
It's never
Okay.
going to be it. I'm going to
No.
hold your hand. We're going to do a warm handoff. We're going to figure. Sometimes I spend 24
Yeah.
hours with one family trying to find a place, and I'm
Yeah.
calling 20, 25 places to do it. And
Yeah.
it can be
Yeah.
hard.
So let's talk about maybe two aspects. One is, if you're not doing the hand holding, what happens? Like
No.
where does that leave the provider, the families, the person who's supposed to receive care? And then maybe let's talk about, like, go deeper into the piece around, what what would you look for? How would you want to, like, if it's an ideal world, what would that be for you, or like what are the major challenges?
Yeah.
So let's maybe talk about, let's say you're not able to like handle, because let's say 5 cases that you're trying to
Yeah.
handle.
Yeah.
What happens?
There's a lot of referrals, and we got a small team, so I get it. Even when you have big teams that I've managed, it's never easy to do that. So the biggest thing that I would say happens when you don't have a smooth referral or a handoff is that the person who's going through this, right, they are in the most challenging, if not one of the most challenging times of their lives, for the individual, for the family. And so when you just hand them 5 resources without doing your due diligence, and none of them work out, they call 2 of them, they both say, nope, I'm sorry, I can't help you. What do you think that person does? They give up. They say, I'm not worth it, right? I'm already going through this. No one wants to help me. I've heard no 100 times, right? Why am I even doing this? The family gets lost. The person gets lost. The friends, the people who touch this person, it affects all of them, right? We say, or we used to say in one of my programs, the one person that you actually care for will affect 3 additional lives around them.
100%.
And that's true. It radiates out. And so my biggest fear is that if you don't help someone walk through that, right, it's not only risking them getting the help they need, it's risking, are they going to be there again to be able to get help?
They probably,
right?
what is it, end up in the ER or even worse.
Yep. In a place where it's not going to be helpful for them. Which can cause more stimulation, which can cause more problems in the long run, more trauma. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that being in an emergency room, and this has nothing to do with the emergency staff who work very hard.
Right.
It's being in an emergency room when you're under a psychiatric distress for
it's
60
just not
days.
the right fit, right? It's not the right medium.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest fear for what happens if you don't help them find the right place, which is why I joke. I say I'm a part-time consultant, right? Because 9 out of 10 referrals I handle, I do not bring to Rose Hill. I am working with programs. 9 out of 10. Oh yeah. I mean, I get calls every single day. My wife will tell you at every hour of the day, I can have someone call me who's trying to look for care. And truly anyone in business development will
attest
bring
to that,
the same
especially
truth.
residential,
Yeah, because it's such a niche level that is now recognized nationally, that step down, and we think of the continuum of care and stepping down that ladder, it's a vital step to take.
Yeah.
And so that's big. Now, to your second part, what would happen in an ideal world? You'll find.
Or let's start with what would you look for if you're trying to do that yourself? So
all I got to do is open up my computer and I got spreadsheets on it, because awesome. Right, I go in Excel, and I mean. And a lot of people you'll find have done this, where they are going to build out a spreadsheet based on program, right? Based on specialties. So we're primary mental health. Well, what happens if I get a primary eating disorder that has co-occurring mental health, or a primary substance use? What happens if it's an adolescent or an adult, right? What happens if they're geographically strained and they can only be in the Pacific Northwest or the Southeast? And so you'll start to create programs and find them. And then you rank them based on what level of programming they offer. Do they offer residential? If they do, they offer long-term residential. Do they offer PHP and IOP? Is it just PHP and IOP? You're trying to find ones with housing. So you have to create this elaborate list and go back to it. And we print it out and we give it to our admissions people for if they get initial calls where they can't actually take them, and we know we're going to refer out in that moment. And it's hard because you're looking through.
You have to create it. I don't know, maintaining that database.
And when people leave, I mean,
people
it's the other.
Move around all the time, right?
It's a nightmare. It's hard, but it needs to happen, because if we could find a way to create a database that could define these programs, right? And there's a great example is ARDA. And that they're a phenomenal program.
Shout out to ARDA.
Shout out to ARDA, my people, who has done a wonderful job of bringing in programs, all residential, who we can define what we need in a program, click through it on their website, and they do a great job of it. And having that connection point is great. But what you do when you go on ARDA is you still have to make that call.
Yep.
Right? And that's the difference. Versus if you have a back end to be able to do that and to connect, we say it 10 times on this, I swear, is connect the dots, right? That's what we do. And if you can do that, On the back
That's a
end,
good name, Connect the Dots.
I mean, that's
I'll keep it.
business development's job is to connect the dots for people. It's to make
Right.
their lives easier. They are going
Yeah.
through enough. We got to make their lives
Yeah.
easier
Yeah. Yeah.
wherever we can.
So you talked about data. You talked about, I think, levels of care, location, specializations. What about something that we keep hearing about is like trust, and like trust is not easy to build. Especially, I think you talked about places where everyone kind of says they do everything,
Mhm.
but then how do you know if they
yeah.
actually do the thing that you need them to do?
A lot of it comes from you have to hear people who've gone through it or worked there, right? And the reality is a good program speaks for itself. And so you'll find them not only in the longevity of them being around, because the bad ones,
Interesting.
if they have
Yeah.
not, will get found out.
Yep.
Um,
So the
but
market takes care of itself.
Oftentimes it does. But people, right, if someone goes through a traumatic experience, and I want to note, when you're working with high acuity folks, there's always going to be someone who does not have a good experience. It's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Think about how many times you've had a great moment with someone and then an equally as bad one with the same one, and you still call them a dear friend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Bad things happen.
Sure.
But it's relative to what it was.
Yeah.
Right. And so understanding, right, were all the right clinical measures taken? Was everyone communicated to with properly? Was the family involved? Right. If all the right actions are taken, and it's still someone going through a bad time, I can understand that.
Yep.
If there was negligence, if there was something that happened that involved someone not doing the right thing at the right time, that's a very different story.
And which is not an anomaly, but like kind of like a characteristic, I guess.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And so,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of changing happening and will continue to happen as we continue to evolve. Behavioral health in a nutshell has continued to evolve, right?
Yeah.
Look at modalities as they continue. CBT and DBT, right?
Yeah. There's
Mentalization
EMDR.
coming out. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at it and you can see that there's a constant evolution, which it needs to happen because
Yeah.
the depth of the human mind is it's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're still barely scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I do want to like go deeper on like the trust factor a bit. So like, are there ways in which you do have that information today? Like you talked about a bunch
Yeah.
of things, like were the right measures taken?
Oh, yeah.
Or there's negligence? Like, how do you?
So it's all through connection, right? And as sales or marketing, as business development, community outreach liaisons, we've got 100 different terms for the same role. But the reality is it all comes through connecting with the people, right? And when you've been in there and when you go and you present to their clinical teams, you get tours, right? You go and you get firsthand experience. You'll see people oftentimes who are going through a lifelong struggle, right? Schizoaffective disorder,
Yeah.
borderline personality. This is not something that we're going to, it just magically vanishes. And so
Yeah.
when you're working with people who are going to be going through levels of programming for most of their lives, you'll hear what's happening and how they were treated and what that programming
So
was like.
outcomes in some sense, like being able to.
Oh,
see.
outcomes are paramount, right? That's
Yeah.
going to be taking your outcomes and
Publishing.
and any good program is going to
Yeah.
publish it once a year, if not more. And that's pivotal because it gives an external perspective, right?
Yep.
But there is still a difference of, well, we have great reviews and we're only going to show those great reviews, and we're using
Yeah.
the DLA and the GAD and the PHQ-9 and all these things, which are incredible measurements to do. But you also want to have that personal connection to it, right?
Yeah.
I will never refer someone to a program that I have not spoken to someone from there and have an in-depth knowledge or communication with them, or that I haven't toured, right? And I'm national, so there's no place in the U.S. someone can say, come tour, and I won't go to. And that to me is a fundamental thing, because if someone doesn't give you the time of the day when you're trying to not only help this individual find care, but find care with them,
Okay.
to me, you couldn't wave a bigger red flag.
Yeah, that's fair. What about if, like, again, there was a system that allowed you to like create new connections when you need them? Because we're talking about like placement of people. Again, there could be a possibility, but there are centers out there that you've not toured, but could be a good fit.
I think if you could have a database that takes, and there's a lot of good programs that are already there, right? We understand they're good programs. They've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And you could have a database where people could drive referrals through it, where it's going to be a good fit already, and it can go directly to their team, where they can have information, right? Now, you have to be careful, right? It has to be HIPAA compliant. You have to have
100%.
ROIs on file to be able to share certain information. But if you could get a certain amount of information to be able to share off the bat, have it through a referral platform, and make it an A to B, very easy thing, it'd be phenomenal. It'd make the life of someone in my role much, much easier.
Yeah.
And I could be able to help a lot more people doing that.
Yeah.
And it also streamlines that entire process. Instead of making 3 phone calls to get to one place, you can push one button, share the important information, get an ROI on file if you need, and then be able to transition it over.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm guessing, like, again, it like with everything else, if you're trying to do the right thing, it also helps with the business in the longer term, right? Like,
Yep.
let's say you establish a new
Yep.
connection and you send someone
It's
they
all
have a good
relational.
experience.
Everything we do is relationship based.
Right.
And that, I mean, that's life, right? You hear it said, people, you sell yourself every day, and the friends you make, in the
Yeah.
conversations you have in work, professional, personal. And so having that relationship and being able to have that trust, that understanding that when I send this person to you, I know that I'm going to be sending them to a safe place that's going to
Right.
be the right place.
Right.
It's not only the right place, but it's the right time.
Yeah.
With behavioral health, those two things have to align. Because
Yeah.
if you send them to the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time,
Yeah.
you're going to do more harm than you did.
Yeah, damage then. Yeah. And in some sense, is it fair to assume, I'm sure like there's a personal side to it, but is it fair to assume that a lot of the work that you are trying to do through like the visits, the conferences is doing that, right?
Absolutely.
Establishing connections and making sure that this is a trusted place that when comes the right time, I can,
Yeah.
you know, actually refer someone out where I could send family over
Oh, yeah.
if it were to come to
Yep.
that.
Where you and people know me. I say, if you have someone who's even interested or they need help finding placement in the Midwest and you're located in the Southeast, right? You have them call my cell phone, and I
Yeah.
will talk to them. I will, oftentimes the first thing a family is looking for is just someone to listen. They don't need someone to instantly
Yeah.
solve their
Yeah.
problems. As
Yeah.
beautiful as that would be,
Yeah.
they want someone to
Yeah.
listen and to understand and to empathize and recognize what is happening, right? Particularly if it's, a 19-year-old onset schizophrenia in college classes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what is happening.
Yeah.
I don't understand,
Yeah.
and it affects all your loved ones. And so
Yeah.
having that trust built into that, knowing you can send them to someone. I have a select number of people on speed dial on my phone. I'm going to give a shout out to Jameson Rowland with AMFM as one of them,
Yeah.
who's a person I know that if I'm stumped,
Yeah.
I call him and I know he's going to help me out because he knows exactly what programs I would
Okay.
need at
He's
all
a
times.
powerhouse
He
of
is
resources.
he is my go-to, right?
Yeah.
He's my ride or die.
Yeah.
And we all have those people. And so having those connections is incredible. But to have a database that can already align that for
Actually
you,
do that
it's
so
a
that
step ahead.
Does not
We're talking in
again
2040 now.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe let's talk about how you're seeing the field evolving a little bit,
Yeah.
especially again in the context of like access to care. What have you seen recently that has especially affected the way in which you operate recently?
So you're saying how behavioral health industry as a whole is evolving?
Evolving, and especially like when it comes to like managing referral relationships, like are you having to like approach things differently in like the last maybe year or so, or things like that?
I don't. So in the half decade that I've been doing this now, I don't see a massive change in the process of how we're doing it. Right?
Sure.
It's still calling people. It's still calling programs. Understanding if you're going to be the right fit. Working with the family to hand them off to people. Right? What I am finding to be a challenge is the lack of change in the fact that I'm having to call these places who I've talked to many times, and as they continue to bring out new programming, right, things that I'm not aware of yet, or hiring new people, business development people, right, we're quick to come in and we're quick to leave sometimes, and so we've got to be able to find the right person to connect with at the right time. So behavioral health as a whole is going through an evolution, I think, in a clinical aspect, right, the modalities that we're being able to use to treat certain diagnoses, right. Us launching a DBT program was phenomenal to be able to have this track for the levels for the diagnoses we serve. So that was huge. But as far as how business development functions and how we work, if you ask someone if you ask Tom Parker, 20
Shout
years
out to
ago,
Tom Parker.
shout out Tom Parker, right? Linder Center, one of the OGs, a wonderful, wonderful program. He's going to tell you, I guarantee, the evolution of what business development looked like and the burnout that people can feel on our end too, right? We watched him at Partners in Treatment Conference. I watched him give a wonderful presentation, and it was, what are the things we struggle as business development, right? Because oftentimes you get it, we're sales, we're going to push you, we go grind and keep going, but there's unrealistic expectations a lot of the time, right? When someone tells me to go make 125 calls, 250 emails, and 50 face-to-face meetings in a week, I said, am I supposed to divide myself into 4 people, right?
Yeah, just clone, 3 clones.
Yeah, right. Just right. I'll hop in a little time machine. And I've never done that with my teams, because the reality is I expect you. I hire you because I believe in you and I trust you. I expect you to go out there and do what you're going to do and know
Right.
how to do it. And if you need support, I'm a phone call away.
Mm.
You say you need me to come out with you in the field, I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
You say I'm having a tough day, I need to go to a bar class and get my anger out, perfect. Get out of there at 3. You're
Yeah.
going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important element too, is the evolution of BD over the last decade, let alone really post-COVID, has been huge because expectations aren't realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're trying to help as many people as we can. We're seeing more sick people, right, as a whole. And even though we've changed a lot, we went from institutionalized to community-based healthcare, there's pros and cons stepping in that direction. But the problem is there's still more people who are going.
Yeah, the scale is just increasing.
It
right?
keeps going up.
Because
And even with all the new programs, I mean, you have people going to 2, 3, 4 different programs in the matter of 3 to 4 years. And that's tough. That's a lot for that person. It's a lot for that family. And it's hard to watch people do that and not be able to get into a stabilized, safe place where they can be a functioning person again.
Okay. If there is someone who is joining the space in the business development role right now, is there some advice or something that maybe seems counterintuitive that you would want to tell them as like expectation versus reality?
Expectation versus, it's a great question, right? And I talk to a lot of, I'll call them green folks, people who are coming in, have either, this might be their first or second job, or they're coming in from a totally different industry like I did. I had to have people take me under my wing. And I think the most important thing is you have to have confidence when you're going and talking to people, because you're going to get asked a lot of questions, right? And never make a bullshit answer out of something. If you don't know something clinically,
Just say
you say that is a great question. I'm going to go talk to my clinical director and get an answer for you, right?
Okay.
That's probably the first and most important piece of advice. The second thing is you got to find a delicate balance of when to do outreach and who to do it to.
Interesting.
Because you might have a leadership team who says, I want you in a hospital once a week. And I promise you, if you walk into a hospital once a week and try and talk to people, your face is going to be on the front door saying,
Do not
never
let this
let
person-
Ethan Zink in this hospital again.
Oh, okay.
And so you have to be very tactful. You are not there to bother people.
Right.
There to provide a resource and help.
You don't want to be in the way. You want to facilitate. Yeah.
Beautifully stated. Right?
Yeah.
You're trying to facilitate that relationship. And ultimately, your goal is to help this person who needs that next level of care. And so you have to be very tactful in when and how you're going to do your outreach, who you're approaching, understanding your market, right? Because how I communicate and how I help train teams communicate to a school social worker versus an inpatient psychiatric unit social worker or discharge planner are two very different frames. Even though the content might be the same, how that conversation is framed
Can you
is
give me
very
an
different.
example of, like, let's say what are two opposite ends of the spectrum that you could consider, hospital versus...
Hospital versus school is a prime example, right? So a hospital social worker is someone who's typically going to be grinding incredibly hard. They're dealing with the highest acuity cases, working on stabilization. They are oftentimes in places that can be dangerous environments with people who are lashing out and doing things. So they want a very, very simple, and I won't speak for every one of them.
Yeah.
I see this often. They want, how can you help me? How can you help them? And what's the referral process?
Very objective.
That's what. Yep. It is a finite. I want to know how I do X, Y, and Z. When you work with a school social worker who's been working with, we'll say, 15-year-old Ethan Zink, they've been working with me for 2 years. I'm in and out of their office twice a week, right? They're working on special programming for me because I'm such a pain in the ass. And that's a story. This is a person, right? This isn't just a person that's in there for 3 to 5 days that they might see 3 or 4 shifts. This is a person who they see daily, 5 days a week for years. And so when you go in and talk about, well, they're decomping, right? They're decompensating and they're getting to a point where I know that they're not going to be stable in class anymore. I don't think they need to go into the hospital yet, but they need some level of care. That's where we're going to step in and say, well, I have a perfect, right, IOP that they can go to.
So the level of involvement
It's
in
level
each
of involvement,
case.
level of care.
Yeah.
It's you're always going to hear people in behavioral health say, what is your why? And it's so vitally important, right? I told you mine at the beginning of this. Is because I was the worst 14-year-old boy on planet Earth. And I want to be able to help other 14-year-old and 15-year-old, 16, any age of people who are going through those very challenging times. But being able to help find, right, when you talk about the school social worker, being able to find a right way to communicate with them that's going to help them understand that this is a journey. We can keep them where they are and get help, right? A virtual IOP where they can stay in school it's 2 birds with 1 stone. You can help them. They can stay there. They don't have to get pulled out. It's very hard as a teenager to get pulled out of class to go into, let alone an inpatient hospital or an emergency
Yeah,
department,
yeah.
and then come back and look at your 12 closest friends who you haven't
Yeah.
been in contact with for 7 days and say, guess where I was, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a different world, and how we tell that
Teenage
story.
boys are not the best people to be around.
And
All
so
those hormones.
it's the truth, right? It's the darndest truth. And so it's you have to be very tactful for how you can approach, right? Talking to a psychiatrist and what they're going to want to know clinically.
Yeah.
You have to be very on point with, right, what medications can you work with, what modalities are you working with, diagnosis can you serve, right? Versus a school social worker might say, well,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure this all out. I'm thinking they might need IOP. They might need PHP. I'm trying to keep them out of the hospital.
Yeah.
So you're walking that line together versus that very objective, right? I want X, Y, and Z, and you better give me the right answer.
Okay. All right. That's beautiful. Thank you. What are you excited about for the maybe like 5 years or so for like the space?
For the
thing?
space the next 5 years ago. I do think we're coming to a bit of a reckoning because post-COVID, a lot of programs popped up really quickly. And there was a big thing that happened where programs who specialize in one area, whether it be eating disorder or primary SUD, right, substance use, started to say, I do primary mental health because there's such a drastic need for it coming out of it. And as I said earlier, and let me say again, everyone who says they do everything good probably doesn't do everything
yep.
good. And so it's going to catch up. And you're going to find the programs that are really designed to help people, right? You know, I'm going to give a shout out to my other alma mater, Charlie Health, who's done an exceptional job, right? Carter Barnhart saw this gap of care that needed to be filled and did an extraordinary job creating the specific program. She knew exactly how to tailor it and who to tailor it for in a very, very unique world. And virtual is not for everyone. I'll be the first one to say that. But for the people who either don't have access to it traditionally or have schedules or routines or things that prevent them from going in person, it is an unbelievable tool. And so that's an example of finding the people who grew into this and knew exactly what they were doing, and programs who said, well, now I do eating disorder, I do substance use, I do mental health.
Yeah.
And you
yeah.
go, you know,
So like carve out something that you can be really good at.
absolutely. It's understand, right? Life as a whole, and everyone should have dreams and goals, and we got to reach for those. But it's also understanding what they are and how they align.
Yeah.
Right. And so having that path or that trajectory of knowing where you want to be, where you're good at, and leaning into that. It's you know, a perfect case study is you look at this is out there, but look at Chick-fil-A. They knew chicken was their thing, man.
Yeah.
And they said, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Look at Wendy's advertising, right? It's
Yeah.
Wendy's against the world.
Yeah.
And people love it. It's fun. It's animated.
Yeah.
It's great. And you find your niches and you roll with it.
Yeah.
And I think in behavioral healthcare, it's even more important to do that.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is bring someone in who's primary mental health, and you say you have, you know, a dual track, and they're sitting in you got someone in just coming out of active psychosis sitting with a bunch of people who are struggling with addiction.
Yeah, it's
and,
not good for
and that
anyone.
that's not the right place to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And so I'll be the first to say if someone is in a scenario like that, you got to get them out of there fast.
Yeah.
But you got to find your lane, and you got to understand where the growth is necessary, where it can happen. You know, some go really fast, some go slow.
Yeah.
But finding the right way to do it is, I think, incredibly important.
Yeah, and then like that would, I'm guessing, make it easier. You'll have better outcomes, putting the word out in the community as to like how good you are, so that people can find you rather than
Absolutely.
you're sort of drowning in the.
It'll speak for itself. People, word of mouth spreads fast. Behavioral health is a small world. I'm at Cape Cod Symposium right now. I've seen 100 people that I have seen 100 times.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. And
Yeah.
that's we love that we're a tight knit community, but it also means that you can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah.
We know how to spot
I love
you.
that. I'm gonna keep using that.
Yeah.
Awesome. We coming kind of like to the end of it, but like maybe let's get to know you a little bit on the personal side
Yeah.
too. So, is there a show or a movie that you watched recently that sort of, you know?
All
caught your
right,
attention?
I'll throw out a show that my wife, shout out to my wife Bailey Zink, who is a really wonderful person too.
Yeah.
And we watched a lot of shows together, but one we watched not too recently, but it was the favorite one we've seen in a long time, has been Silo. And I'm a big sci-fi fantasy nerd. Love me Lord of the Rings, love me Dune, right? And we watched this show Silo. It's from a series called Wool, and it's just so fun, dystopian future, very, very cool thing. So anyone who wants to talk and nerd out on fantasy books, I'm talking Brandon Sanderson, Patrick Rothfuss, any of those good authors,
Yeah.
you give me a call anytime, and I'm
Okay.
all about that fantasy life. So
Awesome.
that's me in a nutshell, right?
Okay. Okay. I'll be sure to find it. And then yeah, where can people find you, Ethan?
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You'll probably see me posting all the time on there. I'm national, right? I lead our business development efforts. So I am Maine to Florida, California to Seattle. You can find me all over the country. Reach out to me on there. Feel free to find me on Rose Hill's website. You can reach out to my cell phone, my email. I'm the one who connects dots for people, right?
That's it. Two
So,
connecting dots.
That's me, to connecting dots, tic-tac-toe right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you for having me on here. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing. Shout out to New Resilience,
Yeah.
one of the best new softwares in the business. I think it's going to make a lot of people's lives in business development a heck of a lot better.
Appreciate that. All right. Thank you for being here, Ethan.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks.